Hello everyone, this is Juan Bloise with Washington Interpreters. This video update will cover how WFSE wants interpreters to pay hundreds of dollars every year in order to work here in Washington State. As always, feel free to pause this video at any time in order to read the information that you see on the screen. As you can see here, WFSE emailed interpreters about pushing legislation to quote-unquote fix the broken interpreting testing system, a very curious statement considering they created and controlled the testing system for a long time. They are basically complaining because DSHS stopped offering their 30-year-old outdated interpreter test and outsourced it to other organizations with higher professional standards, as you can see here. In fact, DSHS expanded medical testing to nationally recognized organizations such as CCHI and NBCMI. It's all on their website. But they're still offering testing for the Social Services certification, which Interpreting Works accepts on its own if you want to cover LNI appointments. So, WFSE introduced Senate Bill 5995 to the Washington State Legislature, sponsored by Senator Saldana, their favorite legislator, as you may know, with the intention of creating a so-called professional license for interpreters. As a reminder, here are the WFSE leaders currently responsible for drafting and proposing laws to the Washington State Legislature. You can also see from their website that some of them never retire and are still pulling the strings behind their agenda. Now, this is the Senate report on WFSE's Bill 5995, which would require interpreters to pay licensing fees to the Department of Licensing in order to work here in Washington. Now, it tells you here that interpreters with a national certification or DSHS certification before January 1st, 2029 can obtain the license without taking an exam, right? Well, keep watching to see how it is supposed to work. As you can see here, they say the DOL lacks the expertise to develop exams for interpreters. You can also see the list of people who testified in favor or against this bill, including some WFSE leaders. Moreover, they're saying here that the bill could put patients at risk, as you can see here. Now, this is where it gets interesting. This is Mr. Bo Perschbacher from the Department of Licensing, who testified about how expensive this license would be for interpreters here in Washington. Here's what he had to say.
Substitute Senate Bill 5995 would go to public testimony. Vice Chair Reeves.
Okay. Madam Chair, members of the committee, for the record, Bo Perschbacher, Department of Licensing. I think, from our perspective, investing a really significant amount of resources and time into development of this licensing system that may be invalidated by the courts or may have to continue alongside a DSHS program is just a concern to have that sort of hanging over this when you're looking at a $20+ million investment. The cost for this, when we model it once you get to that biennium when we're actually issuing licenses, is going to be about $2,500 for 4 years. So about $600 per year for the license. So it's very expensive.
You said $2,500 per license application? Is that
right?
And
it's a
right?
4-year license.
Okay.
So, about $600 a year.
You heard it. The DOL would have to invest more than $20 million to create the program, and it would cost interpreters $2,500 to obtain the 4-year license, or about $600 per year. This is how much WFSE wants interpreters to pay in order to work. Many DSHS interpreters don't have to take the DOL exam at first under this bill, but they would still have to pay $600 a year to keep working. Oh, but that's not all. What about remote out-of-country interpreters? Will they be required to get this license? Let's keep listening.
So the question I have is sometimes the in-person interpreters are not available. And so sometimes the doctor's office will call up a telecommunications company to hire somebody to patch us in. So how would we license those people who are available through the phone companies or services, tele-interpreters?
Yeah, and thanks for that question. and I'm shooting from the hip a little bit here, but my recollection is the bill may not explicitly contemplate that, but we are given rulemaking authority where some of those more detailed scope of licensing questions may have to be clarified.
As you heard, the bill doesn't contemplate licensing remote interpreters, meaning that out-of-state and potentially out-of-country interpreters can cover our appointments here in Washington without taking the exam for the proposed DOL license. But there's more.
Can you speak to the underlying policy on whether or not this as a state license would be utilized or could be utilized outside of the state of Washington?
I'm just not aware of a state government that has a professional license of this type that exists now.
And as confirmed here, this expensive DOL license would not be valid outside of Washington state. However, WFSE leaders like Helen Eby here are not concerned about interpreters paying $600 a year to the DOL in order to work. Listen to her testimony to find out why.
I'm Helen Eby. I'm certified as a translator by ATA and as a medical interpreter by the National Board of Certification for Medical Interpreters. I will not have to go through the DOL licensing process unless I have some reason to decide to do so. The SB 5995 just transfers the testing from the SHS into DOL because the SHS says it's not equipped or funded to maintain this 30-year-old program. Some people think it will make it mandatory to have a license, but that would not change my situation because I already have recognized certifications.
So, in a classic condescending, out-of-touch manner from a WFSE Local 1671 leader, Helen said she's not worried about the license because she is nationally certified and doesn't have to go through the DOL license unless she wants to. You see, Helen's telling legislators here not to be concerned about the other hundreds of interpreters who would have to pay for this license because at least she doesn't have to pay. Isn't that wonderful? Thankfully, real experts like Joanna Ramos from WASCLA were able to testify as well. Listen to what Joanna has to say.
My name is Joanna Ramos, and I am the co-chair of the Washington State Coalition for Language Access, or WASCLA, but we cannot support this bill. Under the bill, the state would be taking a step backward by mandating the use of outdated tests and testing procedures established 3 decades ago by DSHS. This ignores major national advances in medical interpreter training, testing, and credentialing, and DOL is not required to update these exams. Moving the program to a new agency does not address the need for more qualified interpreters now. These major changes with such a high price tag should come with some evidence that they will actually achieve the goals outlined in the bill, and with assurances that licensure will not create additional barriers for interpreters and translators seeking to enter or stay in the profession.
So Joanna here totally schooled legislators, letting them know that the DOL will still be using the outdated 30-year-old DSHS testing program and that they would not be required to update the exams under this bill. But do you know what's more insulting about this? Well, the proposed DOL license would be more expensive than any national certification. This is Natalia Mitareva from CCHI, one of the national certifying organizations. Let's listen to what she has to say.
For the record, my name is Natalia Mitareva. I'm a certified medical interpreter myself and the executive director of the Certification Commission for Healthcare Interpreters, CCHI. We do believe that the bill will lead to a reduced pool of interpreters in the state of Washington, both because the potential additional costs to interpreters will be high, as you heard today, and because the bill implies that license will apply to include remote interpreters, and that would narrow the pool. For a quick comparison, the cost of CCHI national certification is $533 for the first 4 years. That's for all 4 years, and then $300 for the next 4 years. We're in 4-year cycle renewal. Our main concern, however, is that reinstating the outdated DSHS interpreting exam even for a limited time, as proposed currently in the bill, may pose serious and will pose serious risks to patients and healthcare providers. Those exams have been developed and in the early 90s and have been updated only once. If you purport to bring back the discontinued exams, then you'll be licensing individuals who have not been assessed for their ability to interpret in emergency rooms, for pediatric appointments, or for behavioral health appointments, because these skills simply are not tested.
She just said that the CCHI National Certification for Interpreters is only $533 for the first 4 years and then $300 for the following 4-year cycle renewal. In contrast, the inferior proposed DOL license is $2,500 for 4 years and only valid here in Washington State. Way more expensive than the national certification, though. You cannot make this up. She also said that there will be fewer interpreters here in Washington State because the cost of the DOL license will be very high, and they will also use remote interpreters. Now, after being schooled by these experts, you would think that WFSE leaders would just let this go, but no. Let's listen to Local 1671's Vice President, Aida Sanchez Vela.
My name is Aida Sanchez Vela, and I am a member of Interpreters United, WFSE Local 1671. There is a wonderful test already developed, and it doesn't have to reinvent the wheel. So please, let's do something for the safety of the public and vote yes for this bill.
So, Aida here still calls the outdated 30-year-old DSHS test a wonderful test that doesn't need to be reinvented. She's still asking legislators to vote and pass a bill that will hurt interpreters in such a way. Thankfully, it looks like the bill didn't pass. But as you know by now, WFSE leaders will likely try again every year until they get what they want. You see, the reality here is that voting has consequences. Unfortunately, a good portion of interpreters decided to vote for this awful union with out-of-touch and condescending leaders who think they are better than you and have to make these decisions for you without your consent. However, you can still opt out of their union, stop paying union dues, and keep your hard-earned money. Or you can keep making excuses for them and throw your money down the drain. It's your choice. Click on the link in the description below and follow the instructions to opt out of WFSE if you wish to do so. See you in the next one.